Hello, we are live. It is May 28th. Paul, I can't believe May is almost over.
Right?
What happened? I realize this is something that I think you get over a certain age, and this is just everybody says this all the time. But seriously, what happened? It's almost June.
As you said in the past, time is a flat circle, but as you get older, the circle just spins faster.
It gets smaller. Well, I just got back this morning from San Francisco. I was at an AI agent security summit put on by Zenity, and I have to say they did a really nice job. The content was outstanding. It ranged from people talking about the opportunity that security practitioners kind of have in front of them to be using agents. Really great networking. I gave a talk on malicious skills that went down pretty well. And funny story, I haven't told you this. So I walked in the door home about an hour ago, and my husband's working away. And he's like, hey, fill in the blank vendor. He runs a piece of software for his company. This vendor has invited his team to be part of beta testing an AI chat agent. I see your face. For people who can't see the face, yeah, that's the face I made. And he was like, what questions should I be asking? And initially my brain went for, okay, here's how I would test it. Like, this is how I'd figure out. And then I was like, wait. Did you do a security review first? Oh, okay. We have to have a totally different conversation. And so, this vendor turned on this feature for them, gave them no security documentation. We don't know anything about how they're segmenting data, if they're, how they're training things, and no answers. And he works for a very legacy kind of company that software development is definitely not something that they do. It's not the tech industry. I guarantee the IT team knows next to nothing about what to ask. So I am departing on an adventure to help him figure out if this thing is safe to use and then get it approved for use internally so he doesn't get fired. It's a wild world out there. So that's just a reminder. We've been at this for a year and a half or so, and there's still a lot to learn.
People weren't pen testing stuff like this to begin with, originally enough, right? Especially small businesses and blah, blah, blah. But now with just this, like how quickly people are turning these things on, these features, specifically AI features and AI chat features, and they're not pen testing these things. So I think there was this assumption by those of us in the AppSec community that, like, with all this new code and all these new features and stuff, there'd be an equal number of, security checks along the way. And the opposite is happening. We're seeing less.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this particular vendor is a big company, but they serve an industry that absolutely does not have cybersecurity professionals on the, same tier. Certainly not people who know more than me. And like, let's be clear, that's a low bar. It's not great. Interesting coincidence. While I was at the event yesterday, I was part of a tabletop exercise that was on almost the exact same topic. We had a debate about whether it was realistic, and then I walk in the door to this kind of a thing. So yes, it's realistic. But anyway, let's cover the news. You sent me a link, maybe it was yesterday, maybe it was the day before, about OSV deleted 157 malware entries because they had been found to be false positives. These were malware reports that had been reported by a team at AWS through some automation. And I think before we talk about the reaction, I think what we understand, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is there was some kind of LLM generating reports where maybe the reports were not vetted by a human on the outgoing side, and then on the incoming side into OSV, maybe nobody at OSV validated them either. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, we don't know the exact, exactly what was validated on either side, either from the AWS side or on the OSV side. That's correct. well, I guess I changed what you just said, but
you do know.
That's correct.
And I mean, that's the thing that happened. And candidly, I'm not super surprised. It's not ideal. There is real harm when false positives make it into the ecosystem, whether it's vulnerabilities or malware. But the reaction from application security vendors was immediate and kind of brutal, and honestly, kind of not cool.
100%. I said this to a group of my friends on Signal. Like, I really think this is crappy, and I'm trying not to say any naughty words because we don't get in trouble. But I think it was really crappy that a bunch of ASPM and AppSec vendors jumped on this. First, because most of those vendors have never supported OSV in any way. They've never submitted a single thing to it, and yet many of those vendors, and I'm not going to use any names, have used OSV as their primary malicious package detection source, since 2023 when they turned it on. So here's the backstory. AWS is the largest contributor to the open source software foundation, which is part of Linux Foundation, which is who collabs with Google for osv.dev. And so AWS has been submitting for a while now, and they submit so many that they recently moved to like an automated submission process. So they're not doing it the way that I used to do it, just making PRs. They now push mass submissions. And by their own admission, Chi at AWS in the PR, says, hey, we turned on some new detection rules, and they're a little bit too trigger happy, and we pushed some stuff that we shouldn't. So 157 of those. Now here's the problem: is that they've already started rolling back some of those. So some of those, actually, those are legit. And I've since found between 8 and 15.
I saw one comment about, hey, you guys know this one's real. So
I found a number more, a number of them too. Because here's the problem: is that when LLMs decorate these things, and everybody inside of their malware detection engines are all using LLMs. Everybody is, right? When you decorate the findings, you basically have static findings and your sandbox findings. Those all come together, and the LLM kind of goes through those things, and does. It's a very gray area between, especially with some of these like crypto ones, where you're seeing like wallet addresses and other things like that. It's really easy for something to get ticked over from 49% malicious to 51% malicious, and then it's decorated as malicious and it gets shipped, right? And so this idea that it's really obvious at face value if something is malicious or not is not the case. Bad guys hide stuff. So I just think it's crappy that people are piling on who are not part of the process, who are not part of the solution, right? And moreover, I think that AWS, basically the vast majority of submissions over the last couple of years have been from AWS and from Chi's team at Inspector. And so I just want to say publicly, Chi, I appreciate your work. AWS, I appreciate your work. There's this little bit of mess up, but I mean, shit happens. I would rather get a couple of false positives than the alternative, which is, lots and lots of false negatives. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think we should be clear, like we do believe that there needs to be a solution for malicious threat intel that's not OSV. OSV is amazing for vulnerabilities. It's not really purpose-built for malware.
Agreed.
But yeah, that said, there should be, this is a community. Let's be cool. Speaking of community, we got a hey in the comments from our friend Francois at Boost. Hope you're doing good, my friend, and a little, don't know what's going on face. So
what a good guy.
I hear you. Okay, let's move on to our second topic on the list. Again, might have been yesterday, might have been a year ago. Time's weird. You shared a link from CrowdStrike. I know, flat circle, like I said. So CrowdStrike announced that they did a big takedown of Glassworm C2 infrastructure. So they didn't take down the threat actor. Nobody went and made arrests. They took down infrastructure. You and I messaged about it a little bit. I dug into it a little bit more. It was a collaboration between CrowdStrike, Google, and the Shadowserver Foundation, which does have some ties to law enforcement. But we were kind of wondering how they managed to pull this off since we didn't see any government involvement. I found an excerpt from TechCrunch where they said it's not clear on what legal or technical authority CrowdStrike and others operated to take down the operation. When asked by TechCrunch, the CrowdStrike spokesperson declined to comment. So mysterious. It's very mysterious. So we can kind of, set that to the side and talk about what the takedown actually included, because it was 4 pieces of infrastructure. To kind of, educate listeners a little bit if you're not familiar with how malware delivery works. Like, it's never just, or rarely, just the package that you ingest. There's going to be, a dead drop where stuff is getting exfiltrated to, perhaps a typo squatted URL. In this case, what it was 4 things. It was a Solana wallet. What else was it? I don't have my notes in front of me.
It was the BitTorrent. What is it?
Oh
called?
yeah,
DHT.
the Google Calendar stuff, which I think is fascinating. And they had some commercial VPS providers. So
yeah,
wide variety of things.
This release, first and foremost, this is great. Glassworm is a very real problem, and I'm super happy to see this. So nothing I'm saying here obviously is critical of this operation. I just want to say, having been in this space for a long, long time, this release, presents more questions than it does answers.
It sure does.
It's like, I don't, there's so many things I want to know. I mean, the first of which is here's this paragraph from it. CrowdStrike also said there were multiple wallets on the Solana blockchain that were subject to a takeover. However, the security vendor did respond to a question from IT News that did not respond from what this entailed, such as the capture of private encryption keys. And they did respond and said, as a result, infected machines can no longer receive new instructions or payloads. So basically, Glassworm used the same technique that DPRK innovated on first, which is, to your point
I did
earlier,
drop our article from
I saw that
a month ago or whatever. So it's on the YouTube already. I'll drop it over on LinkedIn later. We did an article about the 4 arms of one monster or whatever. Basically, multiple vendors detected different parts of the monster, and we realized, hey, it's all one thing. So that's available.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it, but I just want to go into a little bit more detail.
Yeah, right. Francois saying, who knows, threat actor probably dropped some plain text like anyone else. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, basically the way bad guys do this, whether it's Glassworm or DPRK, is there's multiple stages inside of this attack chain, right? And so in the middle stages, they want to use things like dead drops so they can change those, right? Because at the end, the final stage is typically served from an actual C2 service, whether that's an IP address or a domain or whatever, right? And that doesn't change a lot. So when you look at the whole attack chain, there's a lot of innovation and change at the beginning, right? At the shift left of the attack chain. There's a lot of change and innovation and variation there, but not much at the end. So for DPRK, there's typically 5 or 6 stages. There's 2 or 3 bash stages alone before you get to, the final stages. So same thing was going on here with Glassworm. And so they used in the second stage or the third stage, they used these memo fields inside of these blockchain addresses, specifically on Aptos, Ton, and then there's a Binance thing that I don't really understand. And so the things that you put inside of those addresses are immutable, right? But these little memos, you can make transactions. You can basically spend a little bit of crypto to change these things, and so those things are mutable, and so the bad guys have used those as dead drops very successfully. They specifically say in this that they took those down, and they had go into no details. So I'm like, how did you do this? This is magic.
They have collaborated with someone. Yeah
exactly. Well, and, obviously Google is involved, so the Google Calendar thing, they can be managing. But there's multiple questions here that I have, and I don't know if we're ever going to get answers because they appear to be pretty quiet on this. And my friends at Google, I'm calling you out. You haven't helped me out here. So what's going on?
Come on, dish. One thing that is almost a little bit of a throwaway in the CrowdStrike blog, and you kind of see it echoed in the PR that got picked up by other outlets, is they talk about taking down a botnet. And they don't actually explain what they mean by that. we have talked about human botnet through a different campaign and a different threat actor. And I'm curious, what do you think makes this a botnet? Or do you think it is?
Yeah, I don't know. All right, so I'm going to go into total speculation mode here. If I remember correctly, Glassworm was using the same kind of technique for force pushed code. Once they compromised a developer, they were using that technique for a while. I don't know if that's ongoing, but so maybe they're talking about that. So in that scenario, Jen, they're basically talking about the botnet in the same way we are, only we're talking about DPRK and PolinRider, and they're talking about Glassworm, which is we're assuming they're Russian.
Yeah, why don't you give the botnet for dummies explanation? What does it mean?
Yeah, so basically, okay, over the years, with contagious interview, and specifically with DPRK, 51% stack. In terms of the querum, basically the idea is that developers are compromised via these fake recruiter contagious interview campaigns, or the equivalent from Glassworm or somebody else, right? So basically, a developer has now persistence running on them, a malware running on their machine, and or ongoing access to their GitHub credentials or NPM credentials, right? And
some kind of persistence is in place.
Yeah. So then what they do is, once they have persistence on all these hundreds or thousands of developers' machines, they can then go and do other stuff onwards from there. And we're seeing that with PolinRider, and even actually Team PCP even did some of that in this second to last wave. I got some good data out of that too as well, some juicy data out of that as well. But the idea there is that they have persistence and they can do onwards bad stuff. And so for PolinRider, which is DPRK, what they're doing is they're then going and compromising additional repositories or forking things as that compromised user to then get their code into popular open source projects. That's the typical kind of way that they're doing
kind of worm-like behavior. And I know there's like a big debate about if Glassworm is really a worm. I don't think we're going to get into that, but the whole, it's worm-like. Okay.
Well, we need to make a distinction between worm and botnet. And the reason that you and I call what PolinRider is doing as a botnet is because they have control and persistence of the machines, and then they are manually going out and orchestrating things on all these different machines, doing bad stuff, right? Versus a worm, which is self-replicating and goes and finds things, right? Difference.
Yeah, worth clearing up. Okay, I think we've exhausted what we know about the CrowdStrike thing, and everything else is speculation. So
I have so many questions.
I know, so many questions. The next thing on my list, you popped this on me in the 5 minutes while we were prepping. There's an X post about, well, why don't you explain it? Because I haven't even read the post. I got the 30-second version from you, that there was kind of a nasty bit of finger pointing going on that could be pretty damaging.
Yeah, I mean, the internet is abuzz about this right now, right? Casey Ellis and Gossie the dog and everybody else is talking about it. So basically, here's the backstory, a simplified version of the backstory. A researcher known as Nightmare Eclipse had been working with MSRC, the Microsoft security team, on 4 0 days that Nightmare Eclipse had found. And there was some breakdown in communications, or I honestly, I don't really know what happened there, frankly. But old mate Nightmare Eclipse decided to just drop them. And the problem is that happened in a timely kind of contextual time when other researchers are just not working with bug bounty or security teams at all, and just dropping stuff. So like, there's
let me read what it says. So Gabriel Landau, the researcher, reported a device guard bypass with a 90-day window. MSRC told him it met their bar and they'd fix it, and they asked him to hold off disclosure for extra months. He agreed on the condition they issue a CVE. They then patched it silently, decided after the fact it didn't meet the bar, air quotes, and never issued the CVE. So in his words, they strung him along for a few months to keep him quiet and then broke their word. And then another researcher, RootSecDev, says he responsibly disclosed a legacy auth flaw that allowed password spraying while avoiding smart lockout. 5 months later, same thing. Microsoft posted about it, meaning to defend their coordinated disclosure policy, and instead it's become a thread of researchers explaining why they stopped trusting Microsoft's process. And honestly, that's fair.
Yeah, it's enforced. So I think it's less important what specifically happened with this case and more about what is kind of brought on.
A pattern,
then, right? A pattern, which is that Microsoft has not acted in good faith with many researchers. Simultaneously, Microsoft has under budgeted for its security teams, and I have a bunch of friends that just recently got laid off. Had dinner with one of them last week. Certainly from a GitHub and NPM perspective, it's a crap show. It's not the other word. Listen, I deal with this all the time when I report malicious NPM packages and GitHub repos. They just take a long time to get back to us, and the MSRC is doing the same thing over here. And then the important thing here is that Microsoft's response is just crappy. It basically equates the security researcher to having performed criminal activity, right? It says that something, I'm paraphrasing here, but it says something along the lines of, our legal team is going to, aggressively prosecute, blah, blah, blah. And that's just crappy because security researchers that disclose these things are under no legal obligations to do so, right? There's no rules about this, just to be clear. There's no laws about this. We're doing you a favor. When I turn in an NPM package or when I turn in a malicious GitHub repo, I'm doing Microsoft a favor. I'm giving them free security, help. And to have them respond back in that way when they systematically have been, under investing in this space and not dealing with people, researchers well, it's just a really bad look. And Kevin Beaumont, Gossy the dog, brilliantly put this together saying, Microsoft, this is going to hurt you more than it's going to help you. You might want to rethink this policy of coming out hard, swinging. This is on you, right? We're giving you free help, so don't turn your back on that.
Well, and there's a lot of narrative in the security industry right now about AI slop and bad bug bounty reports, and this is clear examples of that not being what's happening. It's one thing if you're getting junk and you can't wade through it, but these are, from all information available, these are not junk.
No, these are total legit.
These are legit reports that were, received and acknowledged, and then the handling of it is poor.
Well, and on that last part, GitHub then shut down a Nightmare Eclipse GitHub account. Yeah, wow. Burned it all down when they have a long 20-year history of, specifically of allowing security researchers to post POCs. They, internally there was a lot of support for that. And here, because it specifically affects Microsoft, they shut it down, right? So
not a good look.
Not a good look. This whole free speech, it's kind of Elon Musky, right? Like free speech until it affects me negatively, and then no.
Say what you want until I don't like what you say.
And then GitLab, I got to call you out because Nightmare Eclipse went over to GitLab, took all their repos over to GitLab, and GitLab, and I have heaps of friends at GitLab, and I'm very disappointed in the fact that you guys shut that down. That's pretty crap.
Well, let's end on, I don't know about a high note, but a useful note. You and I did a collaboration with Feedly recently, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I think it's really useful. We wrote up a guide on how to use GitHub as a collection source. And where this idea came from was a workshop that you delivered definitely at B-Sides, but various places. And it's based on a technique that you use. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is the technique that you use to discover a lot of the PolinRider malware, right? Okay, so I'll share the link to that, but give us where this came from and why should people be using this?
Yeah, I mean, basically, these are just my simple techniques to forward hunt inside of GitHub, looking for bad guys, and looking for the scale of DPRK and Glassworm and other stuff inside of GitHub, right? So ultimately, it's just a set of search patterns, strings, as well as a process around that. And so I did an all-day training on it and I did GitHub, VS Code, NPM, and PyPy in one day, which was too much. I knew it was going to be too much, but I got really caffeinated and I talked really fast.
Really excited, yeah.
Yep. And at least one person's come to me and said that they've taken what I taught them in that class and now has built actual production forward hunting in their ecosystem, and they're actually using that to find stuff. And I just think that's amazing, right? Like it's really dope. So this Feedly one is kind of a condensed version of that. You did a lot of great work on this. Thank you very much, Jen, for kind of taking my big expansive thing and making it much more kind of easy to access and more to the point. So I appreciate that.
Anybody who listens to this podcast understands the difference between you and I think. I'm the crib notes and you're the
no.
I'm
you can wax prolific too as well. I've heard you do it lots of times.
I can ramble. But yeah, I'll make the offer. If anybody wants the workshop, I think we're open to delivering it elsewhere. Did you put it in for DEF CON or anything, or did you do other stuff for that?
No, I might actually. I got a few days here to do some of the villages, so I might do it for some of the villages. For example, Adversary Village, I might do it for that, but I just got to kind of wrap it up in a specific way for each one of those.
Yeah. Well, for anybody who's putting in CFPs for the week of fun in the summer, Adversary Village, AppSec Village, those are closing, I believe, May 31st. So
May 31st, yep.
Those things in. I think besides Las Vegas is closed already, DEF CON's closed already, so we should start hearing pretty soon what those schedules look like.
And sorry, my brain, I definitely put in. Yeah, sorry, the light bulb went off while you were talking. I definitely put in this GitHub search thing, hunting in GitHub, for a 4-hour workshop. So I did one last year that was similar. It was red teaming the software supply chain, which was very successful at DEF CON. They're 4-hour workshops. And I put in for the same thing. I haven't heard back yet, so let's cross our fingers that comes off.
People keep asking me if we're speaking, and I'm like, I don't know, but we'll be there regardless.
Oh, I got double rejection from Black Hat.
Oh, bummer. Well, I guess I'm not surprised. It's hard to get into Black Hat. It feels like it's getting harder. Be interesting to see what is getting accepted. I don't think it's personal, Paul, but at the same time, it sure feels like it, doesn't it?
Right? It really does.
Yeah. No, we're not salty. Okay.
We're not salty at all.
We're at about 28 minutes or so, so I think this is a good time to wrap it up before we just start bagging on Black Hat. We'll see you all in a week. Take care.
See you guys. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Cheers.